A weakling weighing 98 pounds will get his bike stolen and fall to the ground. And soon on the trail, with the guards on his tail, he'll seek the butt of Simone and the basement of the Alamo. Welcome to Next Scene's Big Adventure, the podcast taking on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, one 9-minute, approximately 10-minute chunk at a time. I'm your host, Sean, and joining me today, my special guests are definitely not weaklings of the podcast world, but they carry the Charles Atlas seal of approval from Rocky Horror Minute. It's Kelly and Leandra. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey there. And I loved the musical intro. You are absolutely spoiling us.
Absolutely. That was great.
Yeah. When I was kind of reviewing the different parts of the film and considering who to invite on for each part, I kind of hit that section of this part where when Pee-wee gets his weight and we see he is a true weakling of 98 pounds. I knew exactly who I had to have.
I
for
was
this
going
section.
to reference that. So I just love you all the more for it. I can take
Yes.
that right off of my list.
I thought the same thing.
And apologies to the listeners for subjecting me to what I call my singing voice, but
no, it's great.
All right, so let's getting into it. For folks that did not hear our previous episode where we covered some deleted scenes from this film, what we are doing is we're talking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the film from 1985, directed by Tim Burton, scored by Danny Elfman, and starring the late, the very, very great Paul Reubens. And we'll be covering this in 9 parts to give you 9 episodes to help you celebrate this holiday season, this winter festival, this end of 2023. So getting into it, let's start. We've got this is part 1, so we've got opening credits. So we start with the Warner Brothers logo with the Danny Elfman score going on behind it. We see, so this is Warner Brothers, a Time Warner company. Warner Brothers is currently part of Warner Brothers Discovery, but at this point they were part of Time Warner, which was formed from a merger between Time Inc., the magazine people, and Warner Communications, which is the movie studio and TV folks. Some of their other 1985 notable releases were Vision Quest, which came out in February, The Goonies in June 1985. We had National Lampoon's European Vacation in July, Pee-wee's Big Adventure in August, and then they closed out the year with 2 big December releases, Spies Like Us and The Color Purple. So pretty good year.
This was a banner year.
Warner Brothers. Yeah. Our next credit is this is an Aspen Film Society Robert Shapiro production. Interesting thing, I didn't before looking into it, I had no idea what this Aspen Film Society is, but this is was a production company formed by Steve Martin and producer William E. McEwen, which I don't think they're around anymore. They've only had a handful or a couple handfuls of films. So Aspen Film Society mainly did Steve Martin films, not surprisingly, like Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid and The Jerk and The Man with Two Brains, in addition to the Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But that second name, Robert Shapiro, he's like the genuine Hollywood producer success story. Started in the mailroom at the William Morris Talent Agency, rose from the mailroom up to senior VP, left in the early 80s for Warner Brothers, and then left Warner Brothers in 83 to become an independent producer. And this is actually his first producing credit. And then would go on to do some other things like Empire of the Sun in 1987, Arthur II in 1988 and Confessions of a Drama Queen in 2004 with Lindsay Lohan. So did a few things as a producer.
Have you
Uh,
seen Confessions of a Drama Queen?
I will confess, I have not.
Well, I was like 13 when it came out. So I did watch it at the time, but it is now legendary for a scene at the end where she does like a flip like up a tree. It is one of the most unnecessary, terrible CGI moments I've seen in a movie, because it's not a movie that would have ever required her to do anything like that. Anyway, that's what that movie lives on in my mind because of that moment.
Okay. Well, the important thing is you remember it.
Exactly.
That's the important thing. I'll have to check that out. That you make a
I'll send
compelling
you a
case.
link
Make
to
it
the
sound
clip.
interesting.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. All right. So our next credit after production companies and so forth, we get the title card, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Or no, sorry, even before that, we get Pee-wee Herman, right? He's before the title.
Yes.
So it's interesting. So Pee-wee Herman is credited as being played by Pee-wee Herman. But of course, we know it's Paul Rubens playing Pee-wee. So Kelly and Leandra, what's your history? Well, I guess specifically with this film, do you remember when you first saw it? What do you think of it? And then also the Pee-wee Herman character. Was this your first exposure to PW, as his friends call him?
This was a film that I saw as a fairly young child and just loved it. In my mind, it was just one of the goofiest films. I I'd say that as a kid watching Pee-wee, you experience it on a different level than being an adult watching Pee-wee. I thought of Pee-wee at the time as being a a kid just like me, but
Mhm.
just a older one, and that was totally fine and normal. So, of course, later I would watch like reruns of the Pee-wee show, and just everything about his existence I thought was incredibly funny.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
for me, I actually had not seen this movie in its entirety until I watched it for this podcast.
Oh.
I Yeah, I had seen parts of it for sure. I had seen Pee-wee's Playhouse before,
Mhm.
but I was too young to watch it when it was airing for sure. I was born in 1991. So I watched it in my childhood a bit, but not a lot. And then, of course, as an adult, I've gotten more into Paul Rubens as a person. I love a lot of his work. So I've honestly seen most of what I've seen from him as an adult.
And so what do you think? That's interesting. So I do a lot of talking about pop culture, obviously, for the podcast, and a lot of it is um, stuff from my childhood, stuff that I grew up with. And I always wonder, without without the filter, without those rose colored glasses, the rose tinted glasses, without the filter of nostalgia, how well do these things age? So as someone kind of coming to this from a later generation and viewing it as a whole just recently, what did you think?
Oh, yeah, I think it's timeless. If you like campy things like this and this type of humor, it's sublime. So,
I'd
Yeah,
say
yeah.
as a kid, this was in the same kind of family as like the Ernest films, like Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Goes to
Hmm.
Jail, and
Hmm.
also the film Drop Dead Fred. As an adult, I think that this is a hugely different experience than both of
I
those
can
types of films.
I can tell you, when I saw his show as a kid, I thought it was kind of like a live. I did not realize it was a character, and I thought it was
Hmm.
sort of a like a live, not talk show, but that sort of thing. I don't think I understood fully what was going on with it.
It
So
was like
I thought he was just like that.
it was like Blue's Clues, but for, I'd say, my generation.
Yeah.
Well, I can kind of see that with Playhouse, the way the different characters or different people would come in and out of the Playhouse. It almost
Yes.
was like a talk show for children, where different guests would come on and do a little bit, and then they'd leave, and you'd be on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
So I
interesting. So
thought it
I
was all
kind
alive.
of yeah. Well, and he does. I think you know, Paul Rubens, I don't know, Mr. Rubens would like that. They kind of, he kind of sells it as almost like an Andy Kaufman-esque performance piece of this. Well, I just said in the film, Paul Rubens isn't credited. It's credited, Pee Wee Herman as himself. So
yeah, Leandra and I we recently went to it was actually an event at a wonderful drive-in theater. Shout out to the Mahoning in Pennsylvania, but they did a tribute to Paul Rubens recently. And one of the things they showed was like a super cut of different clips from him all throughout his career and his life. And they had a clip of him being interviewed, and he said, "For years, I was never photographed in character. Or I was not," he said, "For years, I was never photographed out of character until one day when I was," which was so funny. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he literally never was seen out of character for a really long time.
Yeah, and then it becomes sort of a double-edged sword. Like, it's great when you're known, if you can kind of hit it in show business as, become known as a singular character and kind of turn that into a career. That's great until you want to be a real person and do stuff that character wouldn't do, and then you get in trouble. That's too bad. Yeah, I kind of come at it from an opposite angle. I was around, I remember the original, like the Pee Wee Herman show, which was an hour-long special on HBO where they taped this. So the character started off with the Groundlings and started off as a stage show, like a musical comedy performance centered around the Pee Wee Herman character. So I saw that on HBO first before even the film. And I think that was my first introduction to the character. And then saw the film. And then when Pee Wee's Playhouse came along, I was too old / too young. I was in that donut where I wasn't a child anymore, so I wasn't going to watch kid shows earnestly, but I wasn't yet old enough to kind of watch kid shows with nostalgia or ironically. So I didn't see it. And actually, so I just started watching Pee Wee's Playhouse recently, and it's a lot of fun. I will say it doesn't do well with binging. Like, if I try to watch 2 or 3 episodes in a row, it gets old because it's a lot of the same bits. He's got different things that he does every episode, which kind of, for me at least, it kind of grew old very quickly. But I realized that's also not the original way it was presented. It was supposed to be, you'd have a week between each of these different episodes, so you kind of forget what happened, or you'd be ready for more. So I could see definitely how it's certainly entertaining, one at a time, and it is a lot of fun. Carries a lot of the playfulness of and inventiveness of the film carries through to the show.
Now, I have a question for you.
Sure, yes, bring it on.
Is this your favorite Pee Wee film?
Yes. That's an easy one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's an easy one. I certainly would say that the last one of the series, the one that was I think a Netflix original, was
Pee Wee's Big Holiday.
Yeah, that was painful to watch. But this one, I think, is truly a masterpiece, and arguably Pee Wee's Big Top Adventure is also very, very good, but not quite the gold that this is.
Interesting take. So Kelly, do you agree? Is that your order? You put Big Adventure, then Big Top, and then Big Holiday?
Well, as you may have guessed from the fact that I only just watched this movie for
so you
this
probably
podcast,
haven't seen those other 2.
I have not seen the other 2. Okay. So yes, so far it's my favorite.
Okay, so far it's your
going
favorite.
To stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would flip those other 2. I did recently rewatch all three of those, and I would say so. This is far and away. This is kind of we sometimes we use the phrase lightning in a bottle. I know we talked about
Yeah.
Home Alone and contrasting that with the many sequels and remakes that followed, and different adaptations. That was kind of the lightning in the bottle. Like they never really recaptured that level of magic, and I think it's the same with the Pee Wee Herman character. I really enjoyed Pee Wee's Big Holiday. I had a problem with Big Top because some of the adult, I guess, themes, like just it kind of shows Pee Wee more as a grown up.
I can see
With
that.
this, and one of the things I liked about this film is there's sort of there's like ambiguity. Like, is this a grown man acting like a child, or is this a child who's just being played by a grown up actor? Like, it's kind of weird. And now you could say, but like he lives alone. We don't see any parents, so like that makes him seem more adult like. But then you look at Francis, who is kind of a peer, and Francis lives with his parents. I mean, we don't meet the mother, but Francis lives with his father. Francis is a child who's played by an adult actor. You could make that argument, or is this kind of similar developmentally as Pee Wee, and it has that same ambiguity in terms of, is the character a child played by an adult, or is it adult with just a very childish, immature adult? Whereas in Big Top, he's got like a fiance, like he's definitely a grown up, and then
in this movie, I would say other people besides perhaps Francis's father, but in general, other people clearly view him as an adult.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he is. I mean, that could be part of the magic of Pee-wee. He is. It's like a big situation, but who knows? But I would say, I mean, like Dot has a whole thing for him, and
definitely has an adult feelings for
Simone's fiance. I would hope that the bikers were not about to murder a child.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I can definitely understand that. And again, I feel like we're on the same wavelength. I can take that off of my list of things that I wanted to talk about. Just is Pee Wee a child who is being portrayed by an adult, or is he an adult who's just very childlike? So yeah, if we keep going down this road, I'm just going to run out of notes to talk about later.
Well, I want to piggyback off Leandra's question a little bit and ask perhaps a tougher one. Is this your favorite Paul Rubens film?
Ooh. Leandra, would you like to answer that first?
I'm going to say that it is tied for me with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because he was transformative.
He was amazing in that movie.
Yeah. Like, he was absolutely the most, in my mind, the most delightful thing about a film that I genuinely adore.
Yeah. It is a great,
unexpected,
fun, campy movie, and he still, like, for me, stole the show. So
yeah. And I rewatched that recently as well, having not seen it for maybe 20 years. And I was surprised how small the part was. Like,
in
terms of like,
it's huge.
and like, because I remember him like, he steals the film. Absolutely. And then you watch it and you're like, well, he's not the main bad guy. Was it like Rutger Hauer? Is like the main vampire. Like, he's not even the main vampire of the film, but yeah, he absolutely steals the show.
Yeah.
So for me, those are tied at number one. He's also just been in so many really fun things. I want to, but one of the kind of lesser known silly facts about Paul Rubens is he played Oswald Cobblepot's father in not one but two different iterations of the character, and I love that. Obviously, I'm
Yeah,
talking
so
about when he was in the Tim Burton uh, Batman Returns, but also in the show Gotham. There was a story arc where he was Oswald's dad.
Yeah.
yeah, so I haven't seen Gotham, but I heard about that, and that's just I love that they did that. That's so wonderful.
One
Um,
of my favorite performances from him was when he was on 30 Rock as the last of the
Yeah.
Habsburg line. That was a hilarious performance. So,
But Sean, answer the question.
yeah.
yeah. Um, okay. Well, I want to go quickly back to the Batman Returns, because so Paul Rubens plays the Penguin's father. The mother is played by Diane Salinger, who is Simone from this film.
Yeah.
So it's a whole Tim Burton reunion, getting everybody back together. Um, which is, I mean, so that's a very small part. That's just in the very beginning, which we'd love to see more of that, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I have to check out. So I never watched Gotham. There's a lot of, he's got a lot of, Paul does, he's got a lot of TV stuff that that's kind of a gap in my watching that I could catch up on. The 30 Rock and the what's her name? All those drugs I did in the 60s catching up with me. Murphy Brown, that was it. Yeah. So his turn on Murphy Brown, which is another one that I keep hearing is like he was really good on. But I never watched that show, so I haven't seen it.
My
But
favorite, my
yeah.
favorite of Paul Rubens' movies growing up that wasn't Pee-wee, and
Mhm.
this is a really stupid choice. I want to say that he was one of the bad guys in Dunstan Checks In. He was
You
like,
and Dunstan
Yeah.
chucks in, I swear to God.
I can't
That's
express
yeah.
why that was a great thing for him, but he was like
Yeah.
the primate exterminator that they
Yeah.
got.
Buck Lafarge. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
stupid.
But I love stupid.
I
If it's the right kind of
same.
stupid. And speaking of the right kind of stupid, so I will ask you. So my favorite non-Pee Wee performance from Paul Rubens has got to be the spleen in Mystery Men.
Oh, that's a good choice.
He is absolutely great in a great superhero film from 1999. Shout out to Mystery Men Minutes from Dave Pallas, where he covered that film. So yeah, he's absolutely great as the superhero spleen in that. And it's a real shame. Like he's got some really good dramatic and non Pee-wee acting stuff that he did, and I wish he had done more. I would have liked to have seen more of that, but yeah, he did do a fair amount of voice work. So
Mm.
like video games and animation and stuff. So there's a lot of Paul out there
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
us. So yeah, his gift to the world. So getting back to our credits, our next credit is music composed by Danny Elfman. Um, and another beginner. So this is well, I can talk more about Tim Burton when we get to his credit. Kind of his first feature film. Paul Rubin, his first starring role, and really the first big turn for Pee Wee. He had done Pee Wee had actually appeared in Cheech and Chong's next movie. Actually, as credited as the character, the character's name is Pee Wee Herman. In addition to Rubens was in Nice Dreams, which is another Cheech and Chong movie from 1981, but playing a different character there. And then the Pee Wee Herman show, the stage show, and then the HBO special I talked about. But kind of the first feature lead for this character, for this actor, for this director, and also for this composer who has done a ton of stuff since then. Just looking on IMDb, he's got 136 composer credits and 116 music department credits, additional credits for Danny Elfman. And this really, it kind of, there's a certain style. There's some things you hear and immediately. It's 1980s Danny Elfman. So there's, I kind of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice in 1988, and Scrooged the same year. And then Batman in 1989, reteaming up with Tim Burton, also have all have a very, a very certain feel. but he's done some other stuff. So actually also did Midnight Run, also from 1988, Mission Impossible from 96, Good Will Hunting in 97. And you've got some Danny Elfman music in all the Men in Black films and also the 50 Shades movies, that series, that 50 Shades of Grey.
One of Kelly's favorites.
No.
Yeah.
One of my favorites to do the accent of the main character.
Yeah.
Poorly hidden Irish accent.
Yeah. So and Danny's got he's got 4 Oscar nominations but no wins, 5 Emmy nominations with 2 wins, and 11 Grammy nominations with a win, and 2 BAFTA nominations, and the Academy Award nominations for Good Will Hunting, Men in Black, Big Fish, and Milk. The Emmy win, he's got was those 2. So one for the theme to Desperate Housewives, and then also outstanding music direction for doing music from the films of Tim Burton, which was a special on Tim Burton films, of which Danny has done almost all of them. I think there's like 3 or 4 that he didn't do. And actually, and a couple, and also nominated for an Emmy for the Simpsons theme, but did not win there. I've got a ton of notes on these credits. I won't go through them all. I'll just say there's a lot of Oscar nominations and quite a few award wins, just from the folks mentioned in these opening credits. So I was kind of impressed in terms of, so Tim Burton had a reputation. He was an animator with Disney and had done a bunch of short films at this point, and had impressed Paul Rubens enough that he was selected to to be the director for this film. And it was kind of known, but still kind of a first time feature director, getting I would say a solid backing from the studio, for something that was really kind of a shot in the dark. So the next credit is costume designer Aggie Gerard Rogers, who has an Oscar nomination for The Color Purple, another Warner Brothers production, and received a Costume Designers Guild Career Achievement Award in 2015. And she had also worked on American Graffiti in 1973, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 75, Corvette Summer, for those Mark Hamill fans out there, in 78, Return of the Jedi in 83, and then also Beetlejuice in 1988, and amongst others. Film editor Billy Weber, Oscar nominations for Top Gun in 86 and The Thin Red Line in 98. He had also worked on Beverly Hills Cop 84, Midnight Run in 88, and The Tree of Life in 2011. Production designer David L. Snyder, Oscar winner for Blade Runner in 1982, also worked on Strange Brew in 83, Back to School in 86, another Danny Elfman joint, at Demolition Man in 93, and Vegas Vacation in 97. And the production designer, for folks that don't know, is sort of does a lot of the pre-work, setting up the look and feel of the film, and kind of sketch out what the art direction and set building and costuming and so forth is the stuff that happens on set. The production designer is the person that kind of works with the director and the writers to set that all up ahead of time and kind of set a direction for what that's going to be like. So I imagine David L. Snyder had quite a bit to do with the look and feel of this film, which is one of the things that I love so much about it. Director of photography, Victor J. Kemper, who's got a Primetime Emmy nomination for a TV film, Kojak, The Price of Justice, from 1987. Also worked on Dog Day Afternoon in 75, Slapshot from 77, The Jerk in 1979, Xanadu from 1980, but we won't hold that against him. Also worked on Mr. Mom in 83, National Lampoon's Vacation, also in 83, and Clue in 1985. Shout out to Clue Minute out there that's covering that great film. Executive producer William E. McEwen, We talked about earlier, his association with American Film Society, worked on The Jerk, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, Man with Two Brains, all the Steve Martin stuff. Now, the next credit is interesting stuff. So written by Phil Hartman and Paul Rubens and Michael Varhall. So Phil Hartman, I think most of us are going to be familiar with him between Saturday Night Live and News Radio and various voices on The Simpsons.
When I saw his
But
credit, I
yeah.
flipped out because obviously that was something that if you're not looking at the credits, you don't really see that he was involved in that. And I don't think of Phil Hartman as a writer of
Mhm.
anything really, but of course all of this, particularly the earlier cast of SNL, of course they were all very talented comedians. So it stands to reason that he would be able to write some very solid stuff.
Yeah, so he didn't do a lot of movies. He doesn't have a ton of writing credits. In IMDb, he's got 10 writing credits, 4 of which are various incarnations of Pee Wee Herman films, Pee Wee's Playhouse, and the Pee Wee on Broadway. And then another 4 are Saturday Night Live and various specials. And sort of he was on Saturday Night Live from 86 to 94. And I didn't dive into trying to figure out how many different sketches how many sketches he wrote or how many characters he created. But on the resume in IMDb, that's just one entry. It just says Saturday Night Live. But who knows how much, or I'm sure someone knows. I don't know how much he did. How much he wrote during those 8 years. I'm guessing it's a lot. Because he was actually key. So he was a member of the Groundlings, which was a comedy theater troupe with Paul Rubens, and helped develop the character and wrote, was a co-writer on the original that Pee Wee Herman show, that the stage show that became the HBO special. So he's so writer and co-creator of the Pee Wee Herman character. I thought an interesting thing. So it's actually his first writing credit in IMDb for Phil Hartman is something called Skateboard Madness, which I'd never heard of, but now I kind of want to. I want to seek out, because just from reading the description, so it's like a mix of a narrative film with a documentary. So it's like a reporter who's about to be fired, and like this is his last. He has to come up with the one good story to keep himself from getting fired. So he goes out and decides to cover skateboarders. He's going to do a story on skateboarding. And then he kind of hooks up with a group of skateboarders to like take them on a tour and like show them all their skateboarding stuff. Only like the skateboarders are real skateboarding, are real skateboarders of the time, like doing real tricks and stuff. So like that part is like the skateboarders are all playing themselves, and like it's almost like a documentary, but then there's this narrative structure around it of this reporter who's doing this story to try to save his job. So written by Phil Hartman. So I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of sounds interesting. I kind of want to check that out now. And then then just kind of the rest of through produced by credits. We've talked a little bit about that. And then directed by Tim Burton, who we've talked about, who at this point had done 11 shorts, like sort of a mix of live action and stop motion animation, while with Disney. And his final turn was a Hansel and Gretel TV movie, which was done for the Disney Channel at the time, was shown twice, on October 29th and October 31 in 1983, and then shelved for decades. And recently has been shown in a couple, I think like a couple like film festivals, and a couple things like kind of honoring the work of Tim Burton. Like that's kind of been dug out of the mothballs. But I guess his stuff was a little too edgy for Disney at the time, which led to him being fired, but led to this great film career as a director. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to back up. I missed one of my notes on Phil Hartman. Something I just read today, actually, I did not know. In Futurama, Kelly Landry, are you familiar with the television program Futurama?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
of
you know
course.
I am,
Okay.
Sean.
So the character of Zap Brannigan was originally written for Phil Hartman, which like as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh, that
Oh,
makes total
that makes so
sense.
much sense.
That makes so much
Yeah.
sense. You know, obviously he wasn't able to do it. Ended up, you know, the part was taken over by Billy West, who is, you know, the very talented and wonderful Billy West. But yeah, to imagine what Phil could have done with that character, what could have been.
Well, that just makes
That's
me
a shame.
sad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just
I
brought the
know,
whole
that
room
poor
down.
guy. No,
Yeah,
you're okay.
yeah.
Something that so one of potentially my favorite comic actor of all time is Chris Farley. I'm a
Mhm.
diehard Chris Farley fan. And I realized some years ago that if he had not tragically died, all of Kevin Smith's roles in at
Not Kevin
least,
Smith.
or
Kevin James.
Let me
now
fix that
that's
for
a
you.
movie. No, sorry. All of Kevin James' roles in all of those
Mm.
crappy Adam Sandler, Happy Madison movies would have been Chris Farley.
Oh.
And the crazy thing is, I think that he would have made it work. I think Paul Blart would have been funny if played by Chris Farley.
They would have been so much better.
Yeah. No shade to Kevin James, but I mean,
Yes,
Oh no,
shade
no,
to Kevin
I'll throw
James.
shade on Kevin James.
Yeah.
okay, cool. Is he an
He,
asshole?
I don't know. He
Well,
may be a
he's no Chris
wonderful
Farley.
person, but he's no Chris Farley.
No, God, I fucking love Chris Farley. I'll get emotional if we talk about him too much. So let's move on.
So let's move on. So the credits close out, and we get we get Pee Wee in suit and bow tie, winning the Tour de France. And this is great. I love the music shift. So we get the sort of the circus theme opening over the credits, and then switches to you know, it starts kind of futuristic, kind of dreamy, I guess, you know, to kind of indicate, oh, we're in a dream now. But then it comes in with the, you know, these bombastic horns that make way for these triumphant strings and bells at the end. You know, kind of he's winning the race. It's great music, and there's great music throughout the whole film, but particularly this bit, like it really kind of sets the stage for the whole thing. I mean, you guys, you're experts covering a musical film like Rocky Horror. So what did you think of the music, you know, of this section in general, or in particular, but of, you know, the film as a whole?
My very first note is that the first thing that catches me in this film is, of course, the music. Danny Elfman coming into this as a rookie is absolutely wild. And the fact that both Tim Burton and Paul Rubens were like, no, this guy who is uh, the front man for Oingo Boingo, let's
Mhm.
have him do the composing on all of our music for this is just so wild, and I love it so much.
Yeah, it's really weird, like how this came together, like how um yeah, and you know, Paul talked about in interviews and stuff. He kind of talked about the studio had a series of different directors that they proposed, you know, that they wanted him to use, and he just said no, no, no. And they had been trying to find a project for Tim Burton for a while. They had sent him, I don't know how many, but they sent him a, you know, at least a handful of scripts, and he had said no to directing them. But somehow these two came together and like saw that it would fit, and then they kind of came at it from different directions in terms of approaching Danny Elfman. And Danny talks about this on the commentary, and I will say, I think I've talked about it before, that I'm not a big fan of commentary tracks along with movies. I think you've got, you know, you've got 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever as a filmmaker. If you've got something to say, put it in the film. You know, like really, you know, like commentary tracks, I not a big fan in general. But I really liked the Danny Elfman commentary track for this film, particularly because he doesn't say a lot. So in the places where he's not talking, you just get the score of the film with no dialogue. So it's really nice. It's almost, if you could kind of block out the few times where he does talk, you basically get, you kind of, it's a silent film. You just get the movie with only the score, only the music, without any of the dialogue. So it was really nice. But he talks about how Tim Burton knew him, Danny, through Oingo Boingo, through his band, where Paul knew him through the theatrical troupe Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo and the film Forbidden Zone, which Danny Elfman had done the music for. But if you've ever seen that film, it
is so weird.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it.
I think that's the most polite way to say it.
Yeah. I mean, it is like a Midnight Madness cult film kind of thing. I mean, if you like Rocky Horror, if you're in that Venn diagram of people who like Rocky Horror and like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you'll probably at least find Forbidden Zone interesting, to say the least.
Interesting is a good word for it. Not a lot of it, most of it is aged like milk, I would say. But the parts that didn't are honestly parts I don't remember.
Yeah. Another thing that Danny Elfman has talked about, particularly this film, but I guess in general, his kind of composing style for films, he talks about influence of Nino Rota, who was composer most known for his collaborations with Federico Fellini, and specifically kind of the opening, the theme that plays over the opening credits, and then what we get later on in this piece over the breakfast machine kind of section, kind of borrows heavily from a circus theme that Nino Rota did for the Fellini film 8½. And I thought that was really interesting when I heard that, because I had previously covered Groundhog Day 1 minute at a time for the podcast Groundhog Minute. And Harold Ramis says, he was kind of giving his direction as a director for, how he wanted that film to open. He talks about how he wanted a Fellini-esque feel and kind of like that circus theme. And if you kind of listen to those back to back, the opening of this film, or the theme that plays over the opening credits here, and the music that plays over the opening credits to Groundhog Day, they're like, they're cousins or they're siblings. Like, you can kind of hear that they're not the same, they're not directly related to each other, but you can definitely hear where they, the common lineage. They both come from the same influence, from Nino Rota. So that I found that interesting.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we've got, Pee-wee winning the big race. We've got Santa Monica doing a pretty decent job standing in for France here in the background. And then we have the alarm ringing, which causes everyone in the dream except Pee-wee to scatter. And then he wakes up to this insanity. And I mean that in the best way. The Rube Goldberg contraptions of the breakfast machine, Pee-wee waking up. I won't go into detail because we will be here forever. There is so much detail, and there was so much going on, and there's a combination of things where Paul. So the disc I have, there's 2 different commentary tracks that I'll refer to throughout the 9 episodes of this special. So one is Danny Elfman, as I said, which is mostly just the score, and occasionally Danny chimes in with something. The other one is Tim Burton and Paul Rubens together, discussing the film. And they talk about how a lot of the stuff that we see inside Pee-wee's bedroom is stuff that Paul had. And then the rest is they scoured like every thrift shop in Southern California and just cleared out all the trinkets and little toys and everything.
I love that.
Was there any particular things, like what's your favorite little details from Pee-wee's house? Kelly, why don't you go first? Is there anything that jumped out at you?
Oh gosh. I mean, in this opening scene, his little slipper journey on the carpet really charmed me.
the Bambi
And
the Bambi rug, and then his little rabbit slippers.
this is not a little detail, but I assume we're gonna get to the Rube Goldberg machine. That I had stars in my eyes. I was so happy. I love Rube Goldberg machines. So
Gigantic same about that.
yeah, every part of that was amazing.
My favorite
Yeah.
my favorite piece of set dressing in this is the Gumby in the corner.
Oh yeah.
I
Mm.
I thought that was amazing. My second favorite is there's a drum kit in the back and it has like Goofy and Mickey and Donald Duck on it. And of course it's there. There's no possible way that Pee Wee Herman doesn't own that.
Yeah. Yeah. The little Mickey drum set. I think so. Yeah, it's hard to pick out. Well, one, I think, I don't know if this is foreshadowing or just coincidence or whatever. The cowboy theme. So his pajamas, and he's always moving around. It's kind of hard to see, but so Pee-wee's pajamas are like have like a cowgirl with chaps and like holding a lariat. There's like lassos and spurs, and then there's a Native American theme to the wallpaper in the room. So I mean, I don't know if that's foreshadowing for the bull riding we're going to see later, or or the kind of his the southwestern turn that his adventure takes. But I like that little detail, and then I like the kaju on the windowsill above his bed, like all the little Godzilla models
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, and we also haven't gotten to this moment yet, but the fish tank window thing in his
Oh
bathroom
yeah. So
blew my mind.
before we get to the bathroom, I have to point out also another one of my favorite details: the red satin pillowcase.
Yes.
Mm.
How delicious is that? I love it.
That's very Frankenfurter's castle, to be honest.
Right?
This room and this house. This is why, as a kid, I thought Pee Wee was the coolest, gigantic child in the
Yes.
world. I was like,
Yes.
everything about this is exactly what I think is like the ideal house as a 7-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be great as long as you live alone, because nothing gets put away. All his toys are out all the time. So so he can, everything's right on hand to be played with in an instant. But I could see if you're trying to, if you need to get up in the dark and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it's booby trapped everywhere. You're not
Oh
getting
yeah,
anywhere without stepping on something.
that's part of the appeal.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I couldn't skip over that the red satin pillowcase. But yeah, so let's talk about this bathroom. You've got the fish tank. Yeah, the fish outside the window is so surreal. And this room is, well, I guess it fits in because it's like everything is different. So everything being different fits in. Like the kitchen, it has a totally different look and feel than the bedroom, and then the nautical theme, which I guess it's a bathroom, there's water, so of course it makes sense. You've got fishing net and like a fish thing in the mirror. You can see the shower curtain behind Pee-wee, and you see like the fish on the shower curtain, and of course the fish in the in the window, which I would love to have. That's so brilliant.
Honestly, yeah. That anything, if I didn't have to take care of them, because I love looking at fish, but I really don't like caring for them. I hate having to change the water. But if I didn't have to take care of them, replacing any surface with fish tanks always delights me. I would love to have a house, fish tanks everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that so much of this is either improv or at least not in the script. So I have a script. I don't know if it's the final version. It's the 15th revision of the script from March in 85. And like, it's got none of this stuff. Like, it just says, so for Pee-wee, for example, for Pee-wee getting up, it says Pee-wee yawns, jumps out of bed, turns on his record player, does a few exercises with tiny dumbbells, plays with some toys, and disappears down a fireman's pole.
Oh
And
man,
that's it. Like,
it doesn't even
so
have the little record player string thing so that he doesn't have to exit his bed without musical
yeah,
accompaniment.
the string to the clock, and then the slippers, and like the Mr. Potato Head and all that stuff, like that's not in here at all. And it's funny. So, and going back to the commentary, one of the things I think Tim says in his commentary talks, he talks about going to like the special effects in the prop department was like James Bond going to Q Division, just because they'd have to work up all this crazy stuff, and they had to work up all the stuff for the breakfast machine and everything. So he said, it was just, he loved going down there to see what they what they could come up with. And there's a funny little bit going back to the script for the bathroom. So like the giant toothbrush and the mad dog thing with the foaming mouth, like that's not in there. The the fish in the window, that's not in there. The stuff with the scotch tape where he tapes up his face, that's not in there. What is there, what it does have is that Pee-wee has a toy shaver. And it says, while using a toy shaver, Pee-wee sings, "I'm shaving just like Daddy, la 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 la," pretending to shave his face. And then he says, "I'm shaving just like Mommy, la 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 la," pretending to shave his arms. Pretending to shave his legs. And then he says, "I don't live in Europe, la 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 la," pretending to shave under his arms.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's absolutely wild.
Really funny. Also lends some more credence to the theory that he is a overgrown child.
Yes.
Or
yes. Well, yeah,
child.
kind of. I mentioned Home Alone earlier, like shades of Home Alone. We're like, oh, I'm pretending to shave just like Daddy.
Yeah.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. Unless, do you have anything more you want to talk about for the bathroom?
No.
No.
All right. So I want to jump ahead to, well, the reason I invited you to here for this particular section is so Pee-wee jumps on a scale. And this actually is in the script as it's done. So he jumps on a scale and we get a close up to his weight, and it reads 98 pounds, which I don't know. I mean, he is slight. He is a slim gentleman, and we don't know how tall he is.
I don't think he's 98 pounds, though.
No. He would have to be pretty short for that. He would have to be noticeably short in the movie for that to be his weight.
Yeah,
if that's his build.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like without knowing how tall he is, but yeah, he would have to be a very, very little fellow.
Yeah.
He's just
but it sounds he's just a little guy. But it sounds good. And we saw him when he did his little work. It looked like I don't know if those were maybe 3-pound weights he was trying to lift, which, you know what? At least he's trying. He's making the effort. He's doing 1 rep every day.
Yeah, it's more than I do.
That's true.
So we have the proverbial weakling weighing 98 pounds. And we see Pee-wee is a Pisces, or at least that's the fortune that he selects. Which I was
I just think it's so funny that it's like, do not go outside. And he's like, nah.
Don't leave the house today. A little bit of I guess like foreshadowing to say like, well, something's going to happen, which is good. It's a film, we want something to happen, so we get an indication that something will happen, and it does. But that'll
it's later. It's like The Simpsons. That seems awfully specific for a horoscope. But then also I love that he bothered to have this set up so that he could read it, but then also just doesn't. He places no stock in it whatsoever. I'm gonna get a fortune and then completely ignore it. Although speaking of like this being specific, does this fortune telling machine know it's in a home? Because I would think generally these things are like out in the wild, like they're in a store, or it's at a fair or the mall or something. Like usually by the time you're getting this fortune, you would have already left the house. Unless this particular machine knows, or maybe there's a different set of fortunes you can load up the machine with that are specific for depending on where it's, is it in a shop, then it'll say spend lots of money, or if it's at a rest area on the highway, it'll be like don't speed, or if it's the home version, it says don't leave home today.
I mean, it would make sense for it to normally be in a shop, because as much as I think that Pee-wee is very well liked by the other people in his life, with
Mhm.
some notable exceptions, I don't get the impression that he has company over terribly often. So is he just going to constantly have to order new Pisces stuff?
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, if that's that's when his birthday is. If he's a Pisces, then he's just gonna run through that one thing um, much quicker than the others. I assume when he has guests over, he probably offers them a fortune. I hope
I
that would be
I
the
would do
polite thing
that.
to do.
I would do that.
Now you're making me want one of these.
Kelly, I just bought a house. You know what to do.
They
Okay.
make a
It's
great
true.
housewarming gift.
And I hope you're taking inspiration from this clip as you decorate your new home.
Get decorating
Yes, I'm
tips.
going to fill it with all sorts of nonsense. I actually have an Ernest Goes to Camp and Ernest Scared Stupid
Trope.
poster that I'm going to hang up among so many other really weird tchotchkes
A
and
handmade
like
bat boy
a handmade
made
bat
by
boy.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Anyway,
Yeah, Pee-wee would approve
I hope
of the
so.
house that I'm going to be filling.
Excellent, excellent. So moving on to breakfast, I have a question for Kelly and Leandra, and for the listeners. You can answer, talk to your phone, your MP3 device, or wherever you're listening. So what do you know about Mr. T and Mr. T cereal? Did you know this was a thing, like in real world, like an actual cereal?
In high school, I developed a strange fixation on Mr. T. I was too
Of
old, or I was
course
too
you did.
young. Yeah, I was too young to have had much, like, to have been around when he was originally popular, but I would rush home from school in high school to watch the A Team every day.
Mm-hmm.
I had an app that was just a Mr. T soundboard on my very first iPhone. I had like the first iPhone that came out, and that was like one of the very first apps I ever downloaded. So yes, I knew about like every Mr. T product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I'm not an entire nerd.
Oh, you're not.
You're just
That's
part of a nerd.
interesting to
Yes.
claim. Yeah.
You're just partial. Okay.
She's not
Yeah,
really complete without me.
just
Oh,
one of the things that like just brings me joy, it just pleases me and tickles me to no end, is in doing research for the podcast, is coming upon people posting online that just thought this was some crazy prop for a movie, finding out like, no, Mr. T cereal was an actual thing that you could go and buy in the supermarket, just with your Rice Krispies and Frosted Flakes and Captain Crunch, and
I
there's
certainly
Mr.
had
Yeah,
no
T.
doubts.
he was like a figure for children, he did a
Yeah.
lot of like
Mm-hmm.
PSAs about drinking milk and stuff like that, so
Was a lot
it
of
makes
say
sense.
no to drugs and stay in
Yeah.
school and study, and yeah, so
But
but
not
it's
about
because
getting good haircuts.
well, that's true.
Unless.
But I could see like looking at it from like a 21st century perspective of like, oh, this is just a silly prop for this crazy movie. But no, the 80s were a crazy time in their way, and we had things like actual Mr. T cereal.
Would you identify this as product placement, though? Like, was it
Mm.
sponsored by Mr. T, or was this just like a random happenstance of Paul Rubens
No,
and everybody
Yeah.
going,
no,
"This is
How much did Mr. T
no,
pay him to say, I'll tell you the
no,
fool doesn't need my cereal?
no. La la la, not listening. La la la. I will not let you ruin both Mr. T and Pee Wee Herman to suggest that this is just crass commercialism.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's crass commercialism personally. I do think that it's one of those instances where uh, where the product is selected not because of money, but
Yeah,
because of the merit of the product within the plot,
yeah,
as it is.
yeah. No, I think this is probably Pee Wee Herman's favorite cereal,
Yeah,
or the cereal that Paul Rubens has imagined would be
it
Mhm.
is the most
Pee Wee's.
ridiculous cereal
Cereal he
that
could find.
he could
Yeah.
choose.
They're little T's,
Yeah,
of course.
like
Um, So
He
no,
could have, if they had Snorks cereal, I'm sure that would have worked just as fine, but they don't. So Mr. T
yeah.
it is.
So I do not think, and I reject wholeheartedly the very concept, the very idea, the very thought that this could be product placement. That this could be a paid for, consideration was given for this placement. No, this is no, this is completely natural within the scope of the character in the film.
Well, regardless of its intent, it has always made me want to find and eat Mr. T cereal.
Mr. T cereal. It's been a while since I've had any. And I'm guessing if you were able to find some, it'd probably be like 30 years old, and I wouldn't
Yes.
recommend eating it. If memory serves, and I'm old enough to both that I was around when Mr. T cereal was a thing, and old enough that I don't remember anything beyond 30 years ago. But if memory serves, it was something like Captain Crunch. So it's
Ooh.
very sweet, very sugary, but just in the shape of a T instead of just the round nuggets that the Captain Crunch is. But I'll see. You know what? I'll look into that. That's like a little homework
Yeah.
that I'll take with me to research to see if maybe there was like a second run. Maybe they brought it back that we could try. Again,
Listen,
I would not recommend trying to eat any of the original Mr. T cereal from the first pressing, because
I will listen to
know.
you on that,
I
but Kelly will not.
I was about to say I'm well known for eating expired foods. So listen, if you locate it, I'll give it a shot.
All right, I'll make a
Yeah.
note. I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Um, so a lot of other stuff happens. There's pancakes, there's eggs, there's stuff. I want to give a shout out to our dog here, Speck.
My note was honestly somewhat mean about it because I said Speck reminds me so much of Kelly's dog Bambi, small and
Oh, that's not
enthusiastic and perhaps
mean.
not terribly smart.
Oh, that's a little
Oh,
mean to Bambi, but she is dumb. And I also obviously had Spec is so much like Bambi. So
Yes.
I obviously had the same thing down.
Yeah.
yeah.
Bambi is a long-haired Chihuahua?
She's
Question
half
mark?
Chihuahua, half Yorkshire Terrier.
Okay. She
Oh,
Yeah.
is she is full silly small rodent baby
mhm.
and
Yes.
very sweet. She loves car rides and her little travel bag that she likes to
Yes.
jump in. Um, and when I saw Speck eating out of the gigantic dog dish,
Bush,
it
yeah.
made me think that Bambi would just go to heaven if that was a thing.
She would
Oh yeah,
die.
all that food. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And she would eat it one kernel at a time because Bambi is very stupid.
Yes. She is incredibly stupid.
All right. So kind of wrapping up our discussion on the film itself, and we end this section with so Pee-wee has kind of finished up his breakfast. He's fed Speck. He makes his way out. He says good morning to his neighbor, who is credited, I guess a little discrepancy here, is credited as Mr. Crowtray, but in the closed captioning on the film, it has Pee-wee saying good morning, Mr. Crabtree. So I'm not sure if it's Crabtree or Crowtray, but in any case, Pee-wee's got a neighbor. He says good morning, and the neighbor knows to close his window before Pee-wee waters his lawn, and just leaves that running with water spraying everywhere.
I took that discrepancy to be that it is Crochet, but Pee-wee is just like a doofus and can't pronounce it. And this guy is just like, you know what? Pee-wee is doing his absolute best, and I will answer to this because I know that that's me and it's not malicious.
Okay. Pee-wee is just like Kelly's dog, and we're just gonna love him anyway,
Yeah.
even if he can't pronounce my name. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that. I'll go with that. So, Mr. Crowtray. So getting away from the film for a little bit. So this is not strictly a holiday, this is not a Christmas movie. Usually we do, we've done Christmas movies, we've done Thanksgiving movies. Last year we did Hanukkah. There's nothing, explicitly holiday related in this. But I thought it was out because it kind of fit that in terms of it's good for children. It's something you can watch with the whole family. It's entertaining for all ages. And it's the kind of thing, there's a bunch of different scenes. It's not like a mystery where you've got to be watching for details. It's something you can kind of put on in the background while you're wrapping presents or while you're in the kitchen cooking. And if you catch a scene, you're going to be entertained, even if you don't know, even if you haven't watched exactly what came before or know exactly what's going to come after. It kind of fits the mold in that way, even if it's not, strictly traditional, holiday movie. So I want to ask you, so you guys, you ladies, you people, Kelly and Leandra, you beings of light, what kind of, do you have any kind of non-traditional traditions? And to give you an example, one of the traditions we have in my family is we do escape rooms. And I'm not sure how it started. I think it's mainly because I've got family that lives kind of far away that I don't see every day or every weekend. We can only get together a couple times a year. And so when we are together, we have, between siblings and nieces and nephews, like in parents, we've got a big enough group that we can like do a, escape room just ourselves, just our group. We don't have to have any strangers with us. So it seems like, every Thanksgiving, kind of like, our instead of going shopping on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving or around Christmas time while the kids are out of school, we'll do an escape room, which again, not really strictly holiday related, but just something that's become a tradition that they know that we tend to do every holiday. Do you have any traditions like that? Any things that kind of like become associated with the holidays for you, even if it's not strictly, holiday related on paper?
Kelly, you go first.
The answer is not really traditions. I do watch several movies that are holiday movies to me, but not other people necessarily. Good example would be The Sound of Music. I know that's controversial, but it has a long history of being a holiday movie for people. But most of I mean, honestly, my family doesn't do like huge holiday gatherings. And when we do, it's mostly just gift exchange and hanging out.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah.
So I'd say that they're semi-traditional traditions. And then one that I used to do with my family that I don't really do anymore, but I'll start with the semi-traditional. Um, I I recently uh, decided that since I don't really have any Christmas ornaments, I I have a Christmas party every year, and the people who go to the party, I ask them to bring any Christmas ornament. It can be the dumbest thing that they can find. They can get it at the dollar store, they can make it, they can get a magnet and just like attach a piece of yarn to it. I don't really care. When they come to the party, they'll write their name on a little tag along with the
Mhm.
year, and then I'll hang it on the tree. And then every single year, I'll put uh, these random ornaments on my tree and just be able to look back and go, oh, this one was from Kelly, or what have you. So that's a kind of weird tradition that I've picked up from one of my friends who did a similar thing. And the very weird tradition that I was doing with like my dad and one of my sisters for a while, and Kelly, I don't think that you even know this. It's very stupid. When Eight Crazy Nights came out,
Mhm.
I watched that in the theater, and it came out I think on Thanksgiving, and then, and the timeline on this might be wrong, but like 4 days later, Hanukkah started. So we decided that we were going to celebrate Hanukkah, which was like just random stupid things that were like tangentially related to either Adam Sandler or underage drinking for 4 days. Um, So that was a thing that I did in high school when I celebrated Hanukkah with my dad and one of my sisters. I don't really do that anymore.
Okay.
I think for
Okay.
obvious reasons.
Jesus.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'll have to.
No problem.
I'll put that on my calendar.
Yes.
Hanukkah. We'll bring it back. That and Festivus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? I like it. I like it. Thanks. So I think that kind of covers all the notes that I have, or at least all the notes that I want to talk about for this little bit. Was there anything else you guys you people wanted to add about this kind of this first section of the film, or anything Pee-wee related you feel you need to get off your chest?
Not off of my chest or anything, but I'm really excited to listen to the commentary for the rest of this because it is such a fun movie and there's just so much to talk about.
Agreed.
Yeah. Oh, and I agree as well. All right, so let's wrap it up for this first section of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So Kelly and Leandra, I'm sure our listeners want to hear more from you, more of your insightful film commentary. If they don't already know, where can they find you?
So our podcast is called Rocky Horror Minute. We cover the Rocky Horror Picture Show 1 minute at a time. We are Rocky Horror Minute on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're Rocky Horror Min on Twitter, which I will continue to call Twitter forever, because Rocky Horror Minute was too long. But everywhere else we're just Rocky Horror Minute, and I hope to see you there.
And we're also very easy to find if you just type in rockyhorrorminute.com. We're there
Oh, right.
too.
I forgot our website, rockyhorrorminute.com.
Yeah, and we're the Next Scene Podcast. We're at nextscenepod.com and at Next Scene Pod on some social media. I won't say most. We're on Instagram, we're on Threads, we're on Mastodon, we're on Blue Sky, at Next Scene Pod. And yeah, so this is we'll be covering this film all through December, and then you'll have it there. You can listen to it, and you can enjoy it while you're eating your Mr. T cereal. So thanks a lot. Now, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We'll keep it clean.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you again. Thank you, Kelly and Leandra, for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you out there, listeners, for listening, and we will see you next time on The Next Scene.